Another happy landing.
It is settled then. My wealth will fund the rebellion while Garm provides our fleet and Mon Mothma our soldiers.
An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
Are you sure? So be it. Did you miss me?
CAF. Lots of it. For me and for the Ready Room. I have a feeling this mission is not one we can fly in our sleep.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Thursday morning CAF chat. Well, morning for me. Yeah. And wherever you're at in the world, thank you for tuning in. Hit that like button and share this out. Let other people know that we're here live. And if they want to discuss Star Wars and hang out, invite them over. Yeah. And if you're catching the replay, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to support, subscribe, become a member, and most of all, go over to Rumble and follow there and subscribe. Let's build our presence over there for George Lucas era of Star Wars. Yes. That sounds like a plan. You know, we have a few of us over there that are doing our work diligently, letting the masses know that even though Disney has killed the brand, that everything lives on under George Lucas' era of Star Wars. Now, sounds funny, right? Oh, well, it's dead. Well, yeah, everything that was to go forward, everything that was to exist in the present moment for us fans, dead. But what is alive and what continues as we share and talk is George Lucas' era of Star Wars. So there's a huge difference with that. You know, and we are going to get into the discussion here today about how Disney Star Wars reduced Star Wars, the IP, the brand, the lore, continuity, all that to just quote unquote fun. Taking out the mythos that George Lucas, created and made rules and set, boundaries with and stuff like that. The mythos. And when you look at the expanded universe, or actually just the other media within the property, because Lucas created this IP as a multimedia franchise. So when you look at all the other materials that are being used to expand on the lore, all of that, it's applied to the mythos of the movies, and then from there expanded from there and created some great stories in the historical timeline, giving those little arcs, I guess you could say, like the mythologies and the hero's journey, which is part of the mythologies. If you are privy with Campbell, you would know that every culture has their own version of a hero's journey, their own version of whether it's for male or female, what have you, and their own versions of different various mythos that, like I say, I like to use this analogy. You strip away the meat and potatoes from it, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's the same structure, maybe just presented differently according to culture, right? And so Star Wars in itself is its own culture, telling its own mythos in a galaxy far, far away. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, which, yeah, is far advanced than what we are here, if you want to, insert us or look at that in that perspective. So we're going to get into that. How fun destroyed the mythos. I know, sounds controversy, right? Well, maybe not to us, maybe to the shills that are, crying out, "Oh, it's fun. It's a popcorn movie." And you know what I'm talking about. Grogu and Mandalorian Grogu, whatever the hell the title is. Yeah. So we're gonna get into that. We're also gonna have some lore talk, have some fun here, and we're gonna have some fun. Yeah, keyword fun, right? Oh my goodness. And of course, we're going to get into maybe a cringe factor, book of the week, and even Lucas fact, as well as I want to watch a video made by So Uncivilized. I think that's the name. Let me go take a look real quick. Yeah, So Uncivilized, and this is the importance of Luke Skywalker. And I was thinking about this last night, and what really reiterated that for me to share with you and break down that video of his, because he does some great videos, analogies. If you're not familiar with him, but if you are, no matter what, go subscribe. I mean, he hasn't done anything as of lately, and it's kind of disappointing because he has a great perspective and an analogy on what he is bringing forth, what he has to say. And and I think I want to maybe the Luke Skywalker one and maybe another one, Star Wars Upside Down and the Upside Down or whatever. But anyways, I wanted to bring that here. And one thing that solidified this decision is this morning there was something that shared that came from Instagram, and someone was breaking down that about Luke Skywalker was always supposed to be flawed and not this big powerful superhero, or I'm exaggerating and stuff like that. But anyways, that kind of solidified what I wanted to share here. So as we get started, you guys, let me go ahead and just say hello in the chat, the usual formula for CAF chat. So good morning. And again, what is in your mug? What are you enjoying as you sit and we talk Star Wars here? All right. So we have Conrado here from the Philippines. Hello. I hope this podcast is not Shicho. And let's see here. And then we have one of the mods here, Scran. How are you doing? And I'm missing your lives here. So hopefully you can return back to that when the time is right. Everyone grab some CAF and get ready for chat it up with OG. Yes, thank you so much. And then we have Dennis here. Peace, deuces. All right. And over on Rumble, the Rumble lights. And again, it's slow on Rumble because it's in the morning time. And usually the morning times for Rumble is basically more political talk, I guess you could say, or news and commentary like that. That's what I've noticed from what I've seen with Rumble. So let's open the doors for George Lucas era Star Wars and talking about Star Wars, even in the morning over there. Yeah, so nothing in the 30 years in any of the arts that has been produced has been as emotional, compelling, and significant as Revenge of the Sith. That includes Return of the King. Yep. I love that little clip. In fact, let's play it here because that was my placeholder for Rumble. Because Rumble, you can have a placeholder that's a video that can play for so many seconds or a minute or so like that. And it's a great thing because you can use it as an advertisement for what's coming up in the video that's going to be live and stuff like that. So YouTube doesn't do that. So kind of the big difference between that. So let's see.
I'm telling you, this finale, it's unbelievable how tepid contemporary art seemed compared to the passionate quality of this finale. So you have this huge, it's like romantic nature painting, apocalyptic landscape of the lava. Lucas cross-cuts the destruction of the Senate chamber, and you have the destruction of industry going on. And then, after all these horrors, it is so beautiful. I'm saying, oh my God, nothing in the last 30 years in any of the arts has been produced as emotionally compelling and significant as the finale of Revenge of the Sith.
Exactly. And so right here, something tells me that Camille knows more about the first 6 films than Star Wars Normie over on CommieTube. Call it a hunch. Call it a hunch. And we have Rodimus Prime here. Hello there. How are you doing? Let's see here. And What's up, YouTube and Rumble? That's from me. I'm just saying it again. And let's see here. And we have Matthew G. Matthew Godet. I just rewatched Star Wars 1 through 6. Disney Star Wars is trash. I wish George had never appointed Kennedy and sold 1 through 6 is great epic. Yeah, and his thing was I could see the sincerity of that decision, especially when you hear him talk about it with Charlie Rose in their interview. And the sincerity is that he from what he experienced through the OT and the loss of marriage, and and then being a single dad, adopting and being a single father and all that, and then moving through the PT still with kids that are probably maybe now young adults or older teens or whatever, but that loss of foundation of family, I guess you could say, for the passion, for your drive, for what you love, but you still want it to exist. So that's a conflict right there, right? That's a conflict. That's passion, but also a conflict. And so what he wanted was to be able to give the fans Star Wars and other things that Lucasfilm did, like like Indiana Jones too, because the biggest property out of Lucasfilm is Star Wars. Then you have Indiana Jones, and then ILM goes and gets licensed out to help, produce other films and stuff like that within Hollywood and what have you. But Star Wars was the thing, was the moneymaker, what was kept Lucasfilm afloat in a sense, because again, like they said, they have Skywalker Sound and ILM that was licensed out, and that's a big deal right there. That's a big deal. So he wanted his employees to still have a job. He wanted to raise his family. Him and his wife decided to have a girl or a baby. Surrogate situation, but still nonetheless a baby, right? And so he didn't want to be distracted, because he knows once he puts his mind in a project, just like an artist, once you get into a project, it's hard to stop. I've been there with my paintings where it's like I've been up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then the next day I knew I had to get up early, but I just couldn't stop. And so he knows himself. So he decided to sell, but there's more to that. And I'm still comprising a video on the treatments and also why George sold and everything like that. But Bob Iger was also, I guess you could say, wooing him to sell. So they got it in their heads that they wanted to buy Lucasfilm. And it's not a great read, but it's a very informative read when you read his biography, Bob Iger's, and the section's called Star Wars. So he tells all about it. So they approach George, they keep approaching him, and George starts getting in his mind, I have a wife now and I should sell, I want to, continue, I want Lucasfilm to continue to make money and have their employees, that foundation for them, blah, blah. So they convince him, and he does. But he does with a solid stance. Now, here we are here today. Now, did everything happen the way maybe George thought? No, absolutely not. We already know what George had to say after countless times, right? And I think ever since he got busy with his museum and getting it together, because he did have pushback from the greater Los Angeles area where his museum's going to be. And so he had to work through all the red tape with that. And but once everything got going with the museum, you don't see him talk or say anything more about Star Wars anymore, because he's busy with that. He's probably busy with his family and stuff like that. But we have seen him over time share his disdain and share it's like almost like heartbrokenness, I guess you could say. And basically also disappointment. So anyways, we could talk about this forever, but we can get more into this when we get into talking about how fun took the mythos out of Star Wars. Yeah. But there we go. So, but with Kennedy, he had faith in her too. And so when they started negotiating for the sale of Star Wars to Disney, he brought her in. He trained her, quote unquote, trained her. I don't know the extent of this. Don't know the extent of it whatsoever. But supposedly he trained her to foresee and be the leader, basically, of Lucasfilm. And the selling of it happened. She was, then she kept her position with the contract of the buy of the sellout. And we got everything we got. Now, if she wasn't included in there, would it be the same still? Would they have used her treatments or his treatments? No, because Iger specifically said every decision they decided going forward for Star Wars, for Lucasfilm, basically was decided by the company, Disney. And Kennedy and this is not being siding with Kennedy on anything, but Kennedy pushed or basically followed through with what the decisions were, because those are her boss, right? So would she let me see here. No, because we know she is a person that follows through with what she's told. Now, do we know that if she fought in favor of George Lucas in these decisions by Disney? No, we don't. But more than likely, it feels like she didn't. So that is coming in more into speculations and stuff like that and looking at the actions. So anyways, I'm going to move on and read through the chat. Hello there. What's up, another mod? What's up, Vato? And I'm going to see what's going on Rumble, because I do have the window open there too. Oh, wait, I had to get out of it because I had to check something. All right. So let's see here. I know I see people talking in there. We'll get to that. And the fellow lollipop, oh, lollipop. Yep, exactly. That was one of the most hilarious lives by Scran. There we go. Not by him, but happened on his live. Not by him, but happened on his live. So hi, Backseater, how you doing? And then we have Dennis here. Good morning, everyone. And what's CAF? Star Wars Normie. Exactly. What's CAF? And Nazo, hello here. How are you doing? Now here, just letting you guys know, disclaimer here. We are EU elitists and we are anti-Disney. So if this is not what suits you, then, I'm sorry. All right, OG, what's your favorite person who does the audiobooks? Is it Jonathan Davis? Oh, between him and what's his name? Shit, I can't think of the other one. Is it Matthew or no? What was his name again? Shit. But anyways, it's a kind of like between the two main ones. Let me see here, because I was listening to the Jedi Academy, which does not have who I'm talking about in that. So let's see here. Let me see here. Oh, it's not gonna let me open. Come on now, dude. Oh, there we go. Who is the narrator for who's the other main narrator? Why am I not thinking of his name? Alrighty then. But yeah, I have two of them. Let me see here. I always keep the same energy. Hello, how are you? I got to meet Carrie Fisher. You got to meet her. Deets. I want deets. Where was it? What year was it? All of that. Share in the chat and I'll get to it and read it. So hello, Anthony. How are you doing? And let's see here. Hey, Lily. Why did you use the conjoined twins over Jabba's dads as the HUD antagonists of the movie? Wait, what? Huh? What? All right, let's see here. Get some of my merch here. And pretty soon, I'm hoping by the beginning of April. Geez, I fucking did this earlier too, like yesterday. The beginning of May, June. I'm like going back in time. I'm going back in time rather than it's like May has never registered for me, even though I know like even on the 25th is Star Wars Day. That's fucking crazy. But in the beginning of June, I'm hoping to have all the other images of Sith eyes professionally scanned so that it can be available for prints and even on merch. Now let's see here. And we have Anthony James here again. If my brother is a huge fan of Disney, Star Wars, he likes Dave. Why? We like bad things too, right? We like bad things. And I do have a $5 super chat. I see that. I'll get to it. Hello, Dark Emperor Cotton. How are you doing? I see you over there on Rumble. How are you doing? Let's see here. And let me go ahead. Yeah. So I will click on that here pretty soon, but I see the super chat. So thank you so much. JP Giles, what's up, everyone? I know, and I was taking my time saying hello in the chats. Most modern trash is about subversion, not the hero's journey. Exactly. And Scran is here. What's up? I know I said hello earlier, but still. Lucas era is fun, but not the expense of the stories. Exactly. And Lucas Gerson is here. Hello there, people. It's CAF time. Definitely is. It is CAF time. And I wonder if they get paid by the times they every time they say fun. I don't know, but it's crazy. But what is interesting is we all talk about all the buzzwords that's being said to hype up the masses, and Knights of Malvin went ahead and put them all on Twitter. Typed them all out, put them all on Twitter, and boy, did he drop a trigger bomb with that. So I watched that go down. That was just hilarious how that triggered. But you know, when you look at that, and then when you look at the advertisements of the movie and stuff, the keywords are still in there. So you got to catch it. All right. So let's see here. And I bully shields every day for pleasure. For the pleasure of it. And the sad reality that for most common people, Star Wars is regulated to movies and cartoons. And because books and comics are less visual and less mainstream, they take the back seat. You know what? Because in modern times, no one reads. Everybody wants instant gratification. They just want something in front of them to watch. That's it. That's all. They don't take the time to sit and read or tell stories or read to someone, and where the mind then creates the visuals and stuff. And that's what is, I guess you could say, if you want to flex your brain muscle. I know it sounds funny, right? So I'm using fitness analogy here and, doing reps and stuff. Read. When it comes to visuals, like just sitting and watching, not interaction. So like if you're playing games, there's that catch, there's that difference between playing games where you're still using a device and using I guess you could say the control device, to move an object, to interact with the object. You're still interacting. So there's difference there in a game, using coordination with your fingers, using your analytical mind, critical thoughts on moving through a character with a character in a scenario, than it is just sitting there mindlessly watching. Yeah, I said it. So even games can be more developmental for the person than just sitting and watching. Just sitting and watching. So there's a difference between that. So we are in instant gratification generations now because of TikTok, all of that. And like I said, I praised my daughter and my son-in-law that they are not given, even at this early stage of infancy and stuff like that, they're not allowing the iPad, the phones, the screen in front of baby. They're doing interactions with her, they're spending time with her, they are reading to her, because at that stage of development for the brain, babies need that one-on-one interaction. They need to see you with your expressions of your face, how your mouth moves to form words, all of that for a healthy cognitive development. And as you get older, you know, if the baby's on as a toddler electronics that develops, they don't know how to, their emotional stability is non-existent. They don't know how to move their emotions and stuff. I could talk about this all day, whatever. But yeah, reading is very healthy for your cognitive strength, I guess you could say. And it's not happening here today. It's not happening here today. Not as much as like even when I was little, growing up. And libraries are a big thing. Libraries were a big fucking thing. And I remember even in high school and stuff, going to libraries and like me, it's like hot out there and I didn't want to hang out during break. So I'm like, I'm going to the library. I'm going to go sit and read or do study or whatever, just sit in there and just relax. But then I end up, going to the index cards to search for a book to exactly where it's at and finding that book and sitting down and enjoying. And sometimes it's even looking through like a magazine and reading about an interesting thing. So yeah, I'm a nerd. I know. I lost my place here. Where am I at? Uh, all right. So subscribe to So Uncivilized. Thank you so much. Drinking some green tea. Awesome. Green tea is so good. Lethal nonsense. Lethal nonsense. Hello. How are you doing? Luke is flawed. In the EU, just have to read. Exactly. Yeah, he makes some awesome videos and he hasn't done it in a while, but man, like the Anti trilogy is a must watch it. I will bring that up here and we will watch it together here coming soon. Rodimus Prime. Oh, gee, I watched one of the Matt Wilkins videos and found out that Leland Chi was responding to people asking if the EU was part of George's vision. And he said, yes. Is that true? Yeah, it was. It was a part of, they had to adhere to George's vision. And George had the right to say yes or no according to his vision. So everything established for all the other media projects had to adhere to the movies, to the vision of George Lucas. Now, did it fully fit his vision? No, because we're talking about different people writing in accordance to the vision, to the mythos, to everything accordingly. So it's not going to fully fit, but it's going to fit enough to share, oh, this is what George was aiming for. So you see the difference? It's not his vision particularly, but that's what he was aiming for. Would he have told the story slightly different? Probably, because every author is going to tell a story different, because they're not hive-minded people. They're not hive mind. So, but what's very interesting, and I'm going to get into it. When you look into the Tuscan Raiders, the Sand People, when you look into their culture, this is where you got to tell the stories precisely right. If you don't, you're dead. So you have the historians that had to master their craft. This was passed down to people who were more are Tuscans, who are more like their cognitive development was sharp, right? So they're very, very highly intelligent when it came to the history of their people, the mythos of their people. And they had to tell the story correct or you're dead. So imagine that. Imagine being under the fire like that. So you're the story keeper, you're the historian, and you say something wrong. Yeah. So that's a part of the mythology within Star Wars for the Tuscan Raiders. That's their lore. That's them as the people existing in are a race of beings existing in Star Wars. So that's very fucking interesting, right? Just imagine to be these alien species who's been through a lot because they had they once were two different, or they once were a single race, I believe. I probably get it wrong, but if I do, I'm sorry. But it's been a while since I visited the lore of Tatooine, the history of Tatooine, and the Ratataki. Was it Ratataki? Yeah. Anyways, they basically bombarded the planet. They glassed it out, destroyed it. And then over time, the glass wore down. It turned into a desert planet. You could see all the old landmarks because it used to be a thriving like green world with oceans and lakes and stuff like that. And so you see the little scars of what was left, and stuff. But it was now it's a desert planet. And within that, two species emerged, the Jawas and the Tuscans, right? So you have that. So a little bit of Tatooine history here. Let's see here. You got H2O, and they're lazy, and not just lazy, but arrogant too. Diminishing books and comics importance to the saga. Yes, and that's what George Lucas reiterated many times. One example, which I made a short on, is people were asking, how did Anakin get his scar? Because once we get to Revenge of the Sith, he has a scar, but there was nothing. There's no details on that really. So he has the scar over his eye. And he could have took care of it with Bacta. He didn't. But they're like, how? They're like asking George how. And he goes, well, that's for the books to decide, da da da. And of course he makes the joke, because George, in his funny, dry humor, he made a joke about Anakin slipping in the bathtub, blah, 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 blah. So, and then he reiterates, like, it's going to be told in the EU. Basically the EU, or the books, novel, comics, or whatever, tell what George can't in the time frame of a movie. So that's very interesting that he says go to the EU. So if the EU was not canon to the movies, then why would he refer, right? And I'm sick of people hating the prequels. They connect to the OT brilliantly. Really, actually, I'm also sick of the hate of Return of the Jedi. It's all done to prop up Disney. Yes, that's what you're seeing here today. All right, so I'm like just going through this. We could be all day here, and keep talking and reading the comments here. I think I said hello. Well, hello, Melissa Lord. I know I got a super chat. Where did it go? Where did it go? Where is the super chat? All right, let me go ahead and get him here. All right, so I know Mando and Grogu, and this is a $5 from Derek Lopez. Thank you so much. I'm going to flop worse than Solo from the start. Meanwhile, I finished reading Labyrinth of Evil by James Luceno. So much better. Thank you for the $5 super chat and letting me know about your read and how much you liked Labyrinth and stuff like that. And I think it's interesting that they're comparing it because it's not a quote unquote saga movie. So it's not a part of it's not a part of the Disney trilogy. So they're going to and comparing it to one of the failing Star Wars movies, right? And so it's Solo. And I think it's rather interesting with that. Rather interesting. And if you want to compare it to George Lucas era, then you have TCW, which is an animated film. And that right there, because it was so bad, and we all know this, we talked about this prior to this. So these Disney shows are trying to say, well, you're not bringing up TCW with George Lucas, blah, blah, blah. No, we have. We discussed it since the beginning. Where were you on that one? Well, yeah, right. Either you weren't born or you weren't a Star Wars fan at the time, right? So that's very telling on their part. And $2 from Derek Lopez. Thank you so much again. It will make $2 billion. That aged poorly. Oh my God, Dr. Evil right there. You know what? And what's so fucking funny, because I did watch, I sailed the high seas in the chat while Bane and Grizzy and Melvin watched it so I sailed the high seas with them as they piloted or as they navigated through it. And one thing is, one person that they were kidnapping or taking, and I don't remember who the fuck the person was in Mandalorian Grogu, but he's bald headed. He had this gray suit on. He looked like fucking Dr. Evil. I was cracking up in the chat. I was like, oh my God, they're taking Dr. Evil. But thank you so much for contributing to the channel. I greatly appreciate that so much. Let me see here. And let's go ahead and let's play Miss Carrie Fisher.
George Lucas ruined my life. 57 years ago, I did his little Star Wars film. The fact that you made me into a little doll that my first husband could stick pins into, a shampoo bottle where people could twist my head off and pour liquid out of my neck, lather up with Leia and you'll feel like a princess yourself. And yes, the little Pez dispensers. And though amongst your many possessions you have owned my likeness, lo, all these years, so that every time I look in the mirror, I have to send you a check for a couple of bucks. You had the unmitigated gall to let that chick, the new girl who plays my mother, Queen Armadillo, or whatever her name is, she wears a new hairstyle and outfit practically every time she walks through a door. I mean, I bet she even got to wear a bra. Even though you told me I couldn't because there was no underwear in space. I hope I slept with you to get the job, because if not, who the hell was that
guy? Oh my God, that was a fabulous roast of George Lucas by Carrie Fisher. Oh, damn, that was good. And hey, I see you there, Mr. Dystopian. How are you doing? Armadillo. Yep, Armadillo. That was fucking fabulous, right? That right there will always be in the books. That is something. She is the goat, right? She is the goat. Okay, Cocaine Carrie was awesome. She is the goat. 10 years since she left us. Rest in peace. Yes. Now she's settled and now she doesn't have to confine and be an entertainer. Maybe she's entertaining where she's at, and carrying on her mastery of who she is. Mango and Goo Goo. Hey there, Nerd Migos. Is an okay TV movie, not bad as a fan film. Oh my goodness. All right. So let's go ahead, and if I missed anybody in there, and if there's something you guys said to me in the chat and I just went over, I'm sorry, but we're going to get this show going a little bit further into. So like I said, I could be here all day just chatting with you guys in the chat, but we also have some segments we got to get into. Dark Horse does Boba Fett redemption way better compared to Disney. Disney made him look like puta. Puta. Those may know what puta if you know. Oh my goodness. Let's see here. When people understood what joking was. Correct. And Gerson over there in a Rumble. So let's see here. I have to resubscribe or whatever for Blue Check for my stream to go on to Twitter X, which I probably will, because that right there is just another way of marketing out the channel. I guess you say marketing or advertising or getting people in, whatever. But anyways, so let's go ahead and get into our first segue here, and let's go ahead and hear from what is going on at Lucasfilm.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
So there you go. And we are going to get into Lucas Facts. Let me go ahead and pull it up because I didn't put them down. I didn't put them in the media assets here, what I need to. So let's remove that, delete, and add the Lucas Fact that I'm looking for. Let's see here. I did everything when prepping for CAF chat. I usually spend one segment at a time, but yesterday I did it. I half prepped last night and finished this morning. Just the way things happened. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and, okay, there it uploaded. Let's get into the Lucas fact here. So what's going on in Lucasfilm back in the day? So this is when Spectre of the Past came out, when it was published, from Hugo Award-winning author Timothy Zahn. This is Lon. Oh my God, I will correct that. Who's and like I said, I was this morning when I made this, I was attending the baby and doing this multitasking. That's just how it is. Not blaming. I'm blaming myself because I wasn't totally focused, not her. Whose unprecedented best-selling trilogy continues the saga of George Lucas's blockbuster film. So keywords. It continued the saga of George Lucas's blockbuster. So Timothy Zahn. So this is from Spectre of the Past. So there you go. Yeah, so there is Lucas Facts here. So how many of you guys read this duology? I think, and to some this might be a hot take, but this is my fact. I think the Hand of Thrawn duology is much better than the Thrawn trilogy. I said it. I've said it before. I say it again. I think it's a lot better. I think it's a lot more intriguing. Yeah. So, but that's it. Blaming herself. Good, because they ain't gonna blame me for this. Nope. Not you either. I'm surprised you didn't catch it though when I shared it with you. All right. So the trailer trash stalker's gonna screenshot this unemployed with nothing better to do besides create blue people with his sister. My goodness. Yeah, and I will go back and I'll take, because I only shared on Twitter. So I'll take that down, put it back up with the correction. No problem whatsoever. Yeah, so I just took care of it real quick, saved it, moved on, took care of things before we got started here. So yeah, so didn't even proofread. Didn't even proofread. Holy shit, story of my life. All right, I need an editor. Timothy Lawn. Timothy Lawn. And excuse me. Excuse me. And I reread Thrawn duology decades ago. It's absolutely my favorite out of all of Lon's writing. I doubt that you probably find it more interesting. Let's see here. And maybe he's Timothy Lawn. He's not my Timothy Zahn. Yeah. Maybe same level quality though. Let's see here. And Shields like to play twisted game of blame. They sure do. They sure do. And I live rent free, and people who blocks me and I don't even interact with them anymore. I still live rent free in their lives, and they wonder why I don't engage with them, saying I'm afraid to when I'm blocked. When they block me. George also thanks Zahn for contributing to the saga. Exactly. So this is what, and I haven't played this yet. First of all, to the gatekeepers here.
Because there's a fucking gatekeeper.
I just need to add that to my intros when I go through my intros. I sure do. And let's see here. What else was I going to put up? Oh, yeah. And for those who I live rent free in their
certified boogeyman. I'm the one that up to score with them. The industry can hate me. Fuck them all and they mama.
And this.
Bitch, sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Bitch, sit down.
And good morning. How are you doing? Welcome here. And let's see here. Star Wars used to have multiple books that got multiple awards and on the New York Times bestselling sellers list. Correct. Where is that for Disney Star Wars books? Nothing. They do have some, but it's few and far in between. It's like when you get to New Jedi Order, it's like hit on the claims that their accolades. Yeah. I agree. You, Anna, and I am going to have a Gatekeepers of Holocron on duology, her favorite U-books. Yes, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's see here. I said make sequels because I never would. And he even reiterated that statement even after the buyout. Isn't that interesting? That's so fucking interesting. All right. So let's get into the next one here. And you guys know what that is. So let's go ahead and play.
I hate to say it, but it looks like the item you're searching for doesn't exist.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
All right. So that book was picked due to the fact that we are, and I should have done two of them at once, but I'll pay homage to my absolute favorite one out of the movie novelizations next week. So with that being said, we have Star Wars, The Adventures of Luke Skywalker, now known as A New Hope. So Ellen D. Foster, written through George Lucas's scripts, what he wrote. So they say George was the ghostwriter. So basically, yeah, he took what George handed to him and went there and wrote the book. And we'll get into continuity notes here pretty soon. And then cover art, basically the very first ones were by Ralph McQuarrie. And then later, I did not put the other author, our cover artist in there, but Ralph McQuarrie, cover artist, published November 12th, 1976. So long before the movie came out. So about 6 months or so before the movie. And the timeline 0 BBY to 0 ABY. What? Yeah, so there's that pivotal moment from when we go before the Battle of Yavin up into the Battle of Yavin. So we have that time mark there of 0 BBY into 0 ABY. So all within the same year, I guess you can say standard year, but that pivotal moment of before and after within that year. So not to confuse anybody if you understand. Now, this novelization was based on the screenplay of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, and it has several minor differences from the final film. So when George gave the screenplay to Ellen Dean Foster, that was so far the final decision, in a sense. But then once he started producing the movie, changes were made. Yeah, changes were made. And that happens. So what Ellen Dean Foster was given was at the time accurate. And then as production happened and this novel was already published, then there was minor discrepancies. And from there, though, I was going to list them all, but I was like, that's too much. It's going to be a very small. All of them are minor, but still there's a handful of them, right? And you can even, if you read this book, you can even probably just name them out in the chat right here, just to show between the movies, the difference between the movie and the novelization. So I thought it was very interesting between that. And then, and of course it shares, it was ghost written by Ellen D. Foster. It was ghost, I would say it was not ghost written by him, more or less the George Lucas, whatever, based on the writings from George Lucas. So you see that depending on who you talk with, it's going to switch from George Lucas as the ghostwriter to Ellen D. Foster. So again, clarification, George gave him the screenplay and he went from the screenplay and wrote the story. All right. It was first published by Bellatine Books. So there you go. So we have Star Wars, The Adventures of Luke Skywalker, which was Adventures of Luke Starkiller at one point, if you look into the history. And we did do a movie watch party here on the channel in the private room, I guess you can say, that StreamYard shares, so that I wouldn't get copyrighted or canceled on YouTube. And it was A New Hope. So we watched A New Hope, and we watched it together, talked in the chats, discussed everything in the chats, and had fun in the chats, just BSing with each other and stuff like that. But I was sharing developments of A New Hope as it was happening. I didn't get all of them down in the length of the movie, but I was sharing, basically behind the scene developments with the dates and all of that. That was pretty fun. I don't think that the poll is still up. I forgot to see how long I set the time for the poll, but I gave options of another watch party. It's going to probably be after this weekend on a Sunday, and either of Empire Strikes Back by itself, or one Sunday Empire Strikes by itself, one Sunday Return of the Jedi, or them together. So far I'm seeing that a whole watch party of both of them together and is what is being voted on. So if it's still open, like I said, I forgot what time, like the time frame length I set for the poll to stay active. So if you have a chance, go over there and vote, and I will try to meet accordingly to what you guys want. So really think about it. Do you want to sit for the full 4 hours, 4+ hours for both Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi? Or do you want to break them up into 2 Sundays? So think about it. Or I might have to, make the call and go with separating them. We'll see. So I want to see what you guys want to do. The watch party I use through the webinar here on StreamYards. And what you do is you click on the link, you register, you get the link in your email, and you join. Now on Rumble, I was going to link it to Rumble, but I forgot to link it to Rumble for that other watch party on Monday. But I'm thinking about doing that because so far, Mr. Grizzy, when he sailed the high seas with Mandalorian and Grogu watch party, it didn't get taken down. So if you don't want to register and come in through the chat here, then you can go ahead and go to Rumble. So that's what I'm deciding as well. So we'll see how that works. So I have all these thoughts going on in the process. So go and vote on that. But yeah, so this is the book of the week. The very first Star Wars. And again, it came out before the movies. And so when people think, oh, well, Star Wars is just a movie franchise. No, it's not. It is a multimedia franchise. And what kicked off Star Wars is the novel. And we can argue. It can be an argument. We can debate, more or less debate, if you consider everything that's published in books and comics and stuff now what is known as the expanded universe. And that includes the movie novelizations, which then it's cross-referenced into, if you want to get into the hierarchy, it's both C and G, bridging. But then again, Leland Chi is like, no, they're both together. They both exist as one canon. But so if you want to get into all the technicalities of that, it's debatable if this novel is also EU. EU is just a description of what expands off the movies, but this is a movie novelization. But then you get into the movie novelizations like Revenge of the Sith, where there's a lot of cross-fertilizations between the movie and the EU. So like I said, we can get to debate about that. So, all right. So this is up on Twitter, and it will be up on YouTube and in Discord here pretty soon. Now, what is this thing about fun when it comes to Disney Star Wars now? Now, I thought about pulling up some of the either tweets or reviews. But we already know because it's being talked about by everyone now. It's like almost that we in the Gatekeepers Alliance, as individuals as well as on each other's own channels, like the spacing, have been pointing out this quote unquote shield program long before what we call now the fence riders, the Disney shills, those who are going with the grasp of hope that Star Wars improves under Disney, right? Now they are now following lockstep, I guess you can say, are parroting, noticing, whatever you want to say, call it the Disney shield program that is established. So it's basically an influence program, but you know that shills is the ones that really put themselves out there, hyping everything Disney Star Wars on the channel, and then talk against any opposing criticism, thoughts under the guise of, oh, you're just hate watching or you're just hating, that kind of thing. So we see that go down. We've been seeing this go down where their shilling is so strong, so fucking strong that it gets them benefits. Now, benefits does not need, fence riders and outsiders, you're right. Benefits does not mean monetary, like direct paycheck. Benefits is getting a basket of goods, right? Getting a loot basket, getting notice with given items. It's kind of like blackmail, right? You continue to talk and praise us, we'll give you something, right? Or getting a leather jacket, like Theory has talked about, and going and able to test play games, like Theory has confessed about. Yeah, Theory is a part of that shield program. Maybe now, maybe not now. We don't know. And, being inviting to premieres to watch first, whether it's the first 20 minutes, because there are actually people who were invited by Lucasfilm to watch the first 20 minutes. And then there were some programs where it was, if you can get in and fill the seat. So if you can get in on a seat, you can watch the first 20 minutes. So, yeah. So it's being rewarded for your shilling. It's in a sense, it's getting paid. So when you look at these reviews, and mind you, I did fucking watch. I sailed the high seas, and we did watch on Mr. Grizzy's Rumble. Mandalorian and Grogu didn't have to shell out any money whatsoever. Nothing. I think I had more fun in the chat than the movie. I paid attention to the movie though, because I like to compare and contrast. And boy, do I have some shit to say about how they portrayed the Hutt culture. But that's another time. So fun. How did they take the fun out of the mythos? The mythos out of the fun, the mythos out of Star Wars. Now, when you go into the archives, especially episode 1 through 3, I believe, unless I got it confused, but I'm pretty sure I don't have the book in front of me, and I don't remember the page number. But anyways, George Lucas talks about making these movies fun, popcorn flicks, but deeper with mythos. So basically what he's saying is that his idea of using mythos, giving that foundation structures of taking themes, including mythologies, cultures, all of that, simplifying it to a story that's relatable. So keyword simplifying, right? Simplifying, not dumbing down, not dumbing down whatsoever, because that was never George Lucas whatsoever, but simplifying, making it digestible for all ages, right? And on top of that, a compelling story. So all of that wraps into a compelling story of this hero's journey that people can sit down with their popcorn, with their families, what have you, and enjoy. But now, all it is, according to the shills, is a fun popcorn flick. You don't have to know anything about Star Wars. Now, when you watch the first Star Wars, of course, you're not going to know anything about it because that's when it first came out. Unless you read the book. Yeah, because the book did come out. And there are a lot of people, not a lot of people, there were people that did read the book. So you kind of had an idea what was going on. There's people that are like, I don't want to read the book because I don't want to be spoiled. And there's some people that didn't even know the book came out and went to the movies. So you have all those little aspects of, within the fandom when they were first introduced to Star Wars, right? So comparing Mandalorian Grogu on the fun factor to episode 4, basically Star Wars, now known as A New Hope, Adventures of Luke Skywalker, you're missing the mythologies. You're even missing the fucking plot, and that's a fucking another story. They fucking lost the plot in that movie so much, and that's why people are using it's a fun popcorn flick. You don't need to know about anything. Well, yeah, you don't need to know about anything either because there's no fucking plot. You don't know what's going on. It's just quick action. And again, we talked about this just maybe half an hour ago about the instant gratification, right? Instant gratification. And maybe that's what this movie is about. Instant gratification, fun popcorn flick, so that you don't lose interest, because we're in this generation. And I'm not saying that everybody is. I'm not saying like even with, my kids that they go into this like always instant gratification type mentality, because no, they don't. They read books, all of that. But there is that. And it's apparent. You see that on social media. So the mythology has been being deconstructed within Disney Star Wars for a very long time. Since the beginning, they tried to made a soft reboot of A New Hope, basically copying the story with The Force Awakens. So there comes a point in time when you copy, but copying doesn't mean that you're bringing back the mythos. You're just copying. That's it. There's no sincerity. There's no direction. There's no storytelling and development within a mythos when you're copying. There's no creativity within the mythos when you're copying. There's no expansions within the mythos when you're copying. You're just fucking copying and adhering new characters. And you even see that with The Last Jedi, because when you go and break it down and look at it, and I wish I remember the video, the channel that I watched this on, but they were basically sharing how Rian Johnson was trying to rehash, soft reboot of Empire Strikes Back. And that's pretty much obvious, right? And how poorly it was done. And then on top of that, he was deconstructing the mythos of Luke Skywalker under George Lucas, trying to say, oh, well, this is how George wanted him in his treatments. Now, we don't know the direction exactly where George was going when he wrote those treatments for Disney's Star Wars, right? We didn't know, because treatments are not the actual story. They're ideas of the story that can change. They're not set in stone. So, but when you look into the expanded universe, part of the lore system of the multimedia franchise under George Lucas. Yeah, that's a lot of words, but add to be to the point. When you see Luke leave and he's confident in the order that the new Jedi Order that he rebuilt, that he built. He's leaving to go on a sabbatical. He's leaving the order for some time because there's a lot that he is contemplating. The Sith, the Force, also finding out like how to defeat Abeloth. There's a lot going on that he needs to take care of for himself. So if you read Crucible, at the end you will understand his departure, which mirrors, in a sense, the treatments that George was making for when Luke goes off on his own. But again, we don't know exactly where George was, what George's intention was. I'm just giving out a logical theory on that because it seems to fit, right? So creating and moving on with the mythologies of, of this wise being named Luke Skywalker in his later years in life, because he's old there now. He's in near his elder stage, I guess you can say. And with the Last Jedi, he's like, fuck the universe, fuck my friends, fuck my family, I'm done. And with that's that right there. The theme that Rian Johnson was doing is subversion of expectations. There's no mythology behind that. That is, and he knew what he was doing. He even said it before that he wanted to divide the fandom because he wanted people to think. So he was applying his own purposes in there, not the purpose of George Lucas, because George Lucas never thought about subverting fans' expectations like in that type of degree. He did for storytelling in a pivotal sense when it came to Darth Vader and who he was. But was it a deconstruction of a character for fans to be subverted in such a negative way? No, that was Rian Johnson. That was not George Lucas. This was like an all like, holy shit, I didn't see that coming. Like, but in a more positive way, not in the Rian Johnson way, right? And it really solidified the story and what was going on in the lives of like Luke and Leia and why they were hidden. So you have this Mandalorian Grogu story that if you watched the show, The Mandalorian, the shows, and I'm privy to them. I've watched reviews, both those who loved it and both who didn't, and the people in between. I watched them. I did my homework. And they even seem like they don't belong a part of that series. And even with the series, you're lacking mythology there. That's the continued deconstruction of mythology when it comes to the Mandalorians. And when you see Mandalorian Grogu and you look at the Mandalorian culture, it's briefly done as a slap in the face to Din Djarin. Is that his name? I think I fucking remembered it. Holy shit. But anyways, because I'm not going to call him the Mandalorian, because the Mandalorian to me is a person of the Mandalorian culture. He is not. And what I mean by that is when you look at the mythologies and the culture created from ancient times to present within George Lucas' era of Star Wars. Like even the pacifist Mandalorian that was established through TCW are not true Mandalorians. So yeah, you could say, oh, they still existed, which Leland Chi breaks down, that they still exist in the pretense of, what the Mandalorian culture is. But they're not true Mandalorians, right? And so that's how I see with this. He's not even a fucking Mandalorian, even in the culture that is progressed under Disney is not Mandalorians. And so the Jabba twins, that's what I'm just going to call them, the Jabba twins or the Hutt twins. really deconstruct who the Disney Mandalorian culture. So that's non-existence now, because it doesn't matter if the helmet comes off and on anymore, right? It doesn't matter about the dark saber, because that plot to that was lost as well, like in the series. So it's all about fun. It's all about just sitting down with some popcorn, and who fucking cares about the lore, the story, the plot. And that's where these Disney shills are here today. And when you look back at from the beginning, with Matt Martin saying canon is whatever you want it to be, that's the beginning of this, I guess you could say, brainwashing of these fans, right? Because prior to Disney, like there's a quote that was made that they keep continuity because they know how sophisticated the fans are. Now I re-paraphrase that, but I'm pretty sure you understand where that came from and stuff, and I could share that later. So they keep track of the historical timeline of Star Wars pre-Disney because they knew that's what kept the audience engaged. Versus now, where fans don't even fucking care. As long as they can sit and have fun for the time, the first episode of a series, or the viewing of the movie, and that's it. They don't care about continuity. They don't care about the canon. They just want to go in there and have fun, and leave. Because it's all about instant gratification. They're not going to go and pick up a book and read. They're not going to go and say, oh, I see, this is where they use this theme here. I want to go and look into this further to see where they were going with this mythos theme, or this political theme. And oh, how the mighty have fallen from Andor to Mandalorian and Grogu. Because the fans were like, oh, we're sophisticated. We like this intelligent storytelling, blah, blah, blah. And now they're like, fun. We don't care about story. What the fuck is it? Because, when you look at Andor, it's not a Star Wars story whatsoever. It's not a Star Wars. It doesn't, like, you could take it out of the Star Wars franchise, and it is a sci-fi series under the umbrella of Star Wars, right? And then you have this Mandalorian Grogu. So we're comparing and contrasting between the two. And boy, is there a lot of contrast between the two. And you have this one that has a lot of familiarity with Star Wars in a sense, with the Mandalorians, with the helmets that look like Boba Fett, blah, 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 the huts, all of this nostalgia bait going back and like, oh, I remember that speeder from A New Hope. They're doing something similar. Or I remember how that setup, it looks like Jabba's palace. We have all these callbacks. But there's no story. There's no plot. There's no mythology. There's no essence of Star Wars still. It's just fun. Fun with a side of popcorn. This is the state of Disney Star Wars now. And so when you see, if I ever say, oh, well, Star Wars is dead, I'm talking about the existence here and now and the development in here and now. It's no more. The soul, the heart of it's gone. That's George Lucas. However, when you get into the EU, when you get into the 6 movies and so on and so forth, the heart's still there. The essence still there. And what does Gen Z say? The aura? The aura is still there. Yeah. But when you look at the developments, the progression of Star Wars under Disney, and I'm not using progression as in the DEI, BS, woke nonsense, but the progression, the evolution, it's just a skeleton. Nothing's there anymore. Nothing. Not a damn fucking thing. Now, is Mandalorian and Grogu a success? I don't fucking care. When you look at the box office from its opening weekend, and it was a 4-day weekend, and you consider all the legalities behind it on how much the studio makes versus the theater and the monetary aspect, it's not gonna, like, during that time, it wasn't good. So be it. But when you look at the reviews, and I'm not talking about Rotten Tomatoes, it's already been proven even before The Last Jedi how Rotten Tomatoes is not a reliable source. And we've seen this shit all go down with The Last Jedi review on how the Rotten Tomatoes is controlled by corporate Hollywood. So using that as a sticking point of success or not, bullshit. So I call both sides out. That's not my decision point. My decision point, and how I look and analyze and determine is looking at the story, the plot, even it with the continuity. How well does it hold its historical timeline? And the callbacks. And then I look at how well it establishes and understands its species, its world building, again, going into continuity, right? And also the mythologies of George Lucas. So when you look at this Mandalorian Grogu, yeah, it's fun with a side of popcorn, right? But there's nothing Star Wars about it when it comes to the mythologies and stuff. Because that's dead. That's dead. That's what's dead in Star Wars now. That is what is fucking dead in Star Wars. And when you look at other historical timelines within Disney Star Wars, like going back to the High Republic, they can't even keep their continuity right when it comes to the hyperspace exploration and all of that. They try to add the old ancient historical like ricotta. They try to have callbacks of the ricotta in Andor, but it doesn't make sense because they're the ones that were the pivotal ones that began the exploration and moving out through the galaxy. Their technology, their movement, their quest of conquering the galaxy, basically. But that's not existent when it comes to the High Republic. It conflicts majorly. Why? Because during that time, like 200, 300 years before the Phantom Menace, they're barely exploring hyperspace lanes and hyperspace and how it works and stuff like that. So it wouldn't make sense to them. Oh, but it's not canon anymore. Blah, blah. No, they brought the species in as a callback and stuff like that. So it doesn't make sense. But it's still fair criticism to compare it to what came before, because that's still a foundation that they refuse to acknowledge, but they want to use in their own way, right? So if you're going to use the fucking story, the species, the world building, but change it, it is fair game to compare and contrast to the actual lore that was established behind it, or before it, not behind it, but before it. It's fair game. Just like it is fair game with watching or like comparing Luke Skywalker pre-Disney and Disney, because you are still adhering some of his mythologies that was created prior or after Return of the Jedi. So, yes, conclusion here. Fun, fun, fun. Disney Star Wars. Yippee. Give me some popcorn. But these guys, even Lucasfilm, can give a shit about lore and continuity, about the mythos, about George Lucas, the heart. That's the state of Star Wars, and it continues to remain that way. I've talked about this plenty times since I decided to make my channel into a George Lucas era Star Wars type channel. So it went from just me sharing myself dancing at different powwows, me and my family and stuff like that. So now you have this. We are in this state. Or are we? Because if we choose to not discern between the difference between actual Star Wars and Disney full lore, yeah, we're going to be stuck in the state of like, oh, woe is me. Star Wars is dead. What am I going to do? And, you know, you're going to move through all those the emotional aspects, right? Or you can just say, you know, fuck it. I know the difference. And I'm going to remain and continue to remain in and be involved in the Star Wars that I grew up with, the Star Wars that was established under George Lucas. Now I see some more super chats coming in, so I'll grab them, and then we'll review that show, that video of Luke Skywalker that I said we're going to do by So Uncivilized. So, state of Star Wars, fun, fun, fun under Disney popcorn, but everything else gone, gone. So instant gratification looks like Star Wars, but it isn't Star Wars. The essence, the aura, whatever you want to say is gone. It's gone. And hey, like what you want to like, right? I'm going to like what I'm going to like. I'm going to be very vocal on what I like and what I don't like. And you can deal with it if you don't like it. And that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. All right, so let me get to these super chats here. I know you guys have a lot to say and I didn't read them whatsoever, but I'm going to go here, right here real quick. And I'll hit the super chats too. Disney Star Wars is cover banned. It's not the real thing. They make fan films. They can do whatever they want. Exactly. Lucas Star Wars is forever. Correct. All right. Let me go ahead and get to the rest of the super chats here. Make sure I start out the right ones. All right. So Dirk Lopez, $2. George Lucas gave us a myth. Disney gave us a corporate slop. Correct. Very much so. Thank you so much. And then again for $5, Disney shills have not only fake fans, but they're like slobbering pigs that will blindly consume anything without a second thought. Correct. And for $2, thank you again, Derek, again. Clone Wars 03 is fun, yet still had a story. Correct. So brilliantly done. That's why George Lucas wanted him, Tartakovsky, to head the animation and continue the Clone Wars stories, and it just didn't happen. They both couldn't come to agreement on what was expected of each other and stuff like that. So that right there, a disappointment. We are here now with the fake cowboy lore breaker. All right. The destruction of the lore started in 2008 with Filoni Clone Wars. Yeah, that was basically when a time when like many people was witnessing that go down, whether they wanted to admit it or not. All right, let's see here. So let's go ahead. I know you have a lot to say in there. Let's go ahead and look at that video. And before I start it, let me see, go back to streams. Oh, there's the tab. Before I start it, let's take a small little break. We might not get to Cringe Factor. I might save it for next week. Let's go ahead and listen to our good friend, Matt Wilkins.
Someone asked me to give the best reason why someone should read the expanded universe. After giving it a lot of thought, here's what I have to say. The expanded universe respects the reader. In the expanded universe, Luke Skywalker's optimism continues where it left off in Return of the Jedi. He's fulfilled hope to the galaxy, just like Obi-Wan said he would, not like the Disney movies where he gave up on the Jedi or even the whole galaxy for that matter. The character you see in those movies is not Luke. Luke isn't a quitter. He's not a pessimist. He's a leader. He's inspirational. And he's always there for his friends in times of need. Another character is Han Solo. He's introduced to us in A New Hope as a loner, a man who cares only for himself and nobody else. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, that all turns around when he finally finds friends he can trust and a true love to spend the rest of his life with. And that's exactly what he does in the expanded universe. Han is a devoted husband and father to Leia and their kids. He loves his family above all else. In the new movies, Han turns out to be a selfish deadbeat dad who ran out on his family when things get tough. It's a complete 180 from the character that we saw from Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing the EU does is it rewards its readers. Attention to detail when it comes to continuity has never been done at such a level as when it was performed by the expanded universe. Avid readers will constantly be rewarded for their diligence as comics, novels, video games, and even children's books share connections throughout the entire series, making it almost a flawless, continuous story. And though it has its minor flaws, it's still the best overall story and continuity out there, period. That's what the EU does. It respects and rewards its readers. And that's the best reason you should give it a try. Long live the expanded universe.
Long live the expanded universe. So this right here is by So Uncivilized, and again, paying respect and homage to him for the brilliance of this, his clips or his videos here. So this is 15 minutes. So we're going to get into this. I may pause and talk so that just to be fair. Let's see here. What are you guys saying? Wilkins, very eloquent. Exactly. Oh God, I that friendship that I created with that guy, and just seeing him from the start when I decided to make my channel, even before then, I'm just so happy that I got to know him. And of course I didn't meet him in person just yet, but yeah, so great guy. So nothing but good words towards him. All right, so let's get into here. So let's go ahead and see what he has to say.
I hear so many young people today talk about a world that's emptied of heroism, where there are no more noble things to do. What do you say to them?
The story of Star Wars means something to people, and that's even true in Star Wars. But as for what that story means, well, there's probably as many answers to that as there are people watching this video. So it might be easier to focus on what Star Wars means to its storyteller. After all, the reason C-3PO is telling the Star Wars story is because he's trying to explain who he is. Which, in a sense, is what George Lucas was doing, too. But the most personal parts of this series probably aren't wrapped up in C-3PO.
Yes, R2, I was just coming to that.
They probably have more to do with the character Lucas, named after himself. Not that you would know from the way people talk about him. Luke is often treated like he's just a generic hero archetype. People will even refer to other characters as the Luke Skywalker character, and what they mean is the sincere, if somewhat boring character the larger story revolves around. Now, this is obviously a little insulting if you care about the Frodos and Katnisses of the world.
I care.
But in fairness to the people who say things like this, Luke thinks of himself as a generic hero too. It's just that what George Lucas has in store for his namesake proves to be much more unique and interesting than that.
All right, I'm going to pause here. Now, there is an interesting Instagram post that was shared on Scran's Discord about a guy saying that Luke Skywalker is not supposed to be this this dynamic hero. Again, I'm not getting the right word for it or whatever, but and that he was always supposed to be flawed and all of this, and that basically he was agreeing with Rian Johnson's narrative. And so with this right here, this breaks down exactly that this Luke Skywalker, we see through the OT, his hero's journey. Luke has always been flawless, or not flawless, he flawed through the OT and even into post Return of the Jedi. So let's go ahead and listen on. And then I'll share that that Discord, that clip from Discord. I don't want to, share Discord stuff, but I'll share that IG that was shared here or on there.
Luke starts off A New Hope stuck at the dead end of life on a basically empty planet.
Where are you going?
Looks like I'm going nowhere.
When he meets Obi-Wan and receives his father's lightsaber, it turns his vague dreams of leaving someday into something much more concrete.
I want to come with you to Alderaan.
Essentially, Luke now has a destiny.
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
And at this point, it does seem like Lucas is telling a generic hero type of story. The rest of the movie could be almost any fantasy adventure, with Luke taken from humble beginnings by a wizard who gives him a magic sword to save a princess from a dark tower guarded by an evil sorcerer. Pretty standard stuff. As the story wraps up, it's hard to see what would separate Luke Skywalker from any of a dozen other heroes. Until the next movie starts. In Empire, every single trait that led Luke to becoming a hero suddenly works against his destiny of becoming a Jedi. You know, sometimes Lucas doesn't get credit for how clearly defined his characters are. In this case, Luke is loyal to a fault.
I'm not going to Alderaan. I better get home. It's late. I'm in port as it is.
Fearless when it's time for action.
The droids belong to her. She's the one on the message. We gotta help her.
And a little impatient with the people who doubt him.
Who's gonna fly it, kid? You?
You bet I could. I'm not such a bad pilot myself. We don't have to sit here and listen.
Only this time, instead of flying him to victory, these traits cause him which actually happens twice, just in case you miss it the first time. We're starting to see that Lucas's vision of heroism is a lot more complex than it appears. When Luke's frustration...
So that is very interesting. When you look at the story of this basic hero of Luke, this very common man that steps up into something greater, you see this character development, this very raw human theme that can be very relatable. Now, being relatable doesn't mean that you're inserting yourself into the character or you have to see yourself exactly in a character. Like Luke is absolutely my favorite character. That's what got me into the EU. It's because I wanted to learn more about him. But when I look at him and I talk to him and I relate to his actions, what's happened with him, to him, it's not about who he looks like or how he looks like, the color of his hair, his skin, what have you. It's about the experience. It's about those experiences that we can all experience here in real life as well. Now, obviously, it's going to be different because we're not in this universe. We don't have that type of environment and all that. But how the person reacts, how the person moves through and stuff, we can relate to. So again, going back to modern Star Wars fan, Disney Star Wars fans, who has to see themselves in the character, like literally, this is where you start losing the story, losing the intentions, because it's not how the person looks or if they look like you, but it's how they move through everything, not necessarily emotional, but logical and stuff like that. It goes into the human experience, not how the human looks like you. Okay, so let's go ahead and carry on.
boils over at the universe blocking his path to becoming a Jedi. He's told point blank, it's not the universe that has the wrong idea.
Adventure. Excitement. A Jedi craves not these things. You are reckless.
His training is repeatedly sabotaged by his refusal to understand what he's seeing and hearing, no matter how strong of a warning he gets. Everything that happens on Dagobah suggests that who Luke is and who he wants to be aren't the same person at all.
You want the impossible.
It's not even surprising when Vader is able to use his fearlessness and loyalty to lure him into a trap.
I can't keep the vision out of my head. They're my friends. I gotta help them.
You must not go.
But Han and Leia will die if I don't.
He can't see himself as anything other than the hero coming in to rescue his friends. What's important to hammer home here is that at no point in this self-destructive spiral is Luke ever acting out of character. This is who he is.
Luke, go to the trap!
It's just that being a hero is one thing, and being a Jedi is something very different.
The Force is with you.
But whatever the dangers on Luke's path to becoming a Jedi, they're nothing compared to the dangers on the path of becoming like his father.
I am your father.
This reveal isn't famous just because Luke's dad is the bad guy. It's famous because this is the moment Luke suddenly realizes that he's promised to turn into this man. He finally sees the other path he might be going down.
Like, I want to be like my father, right? So when he's committing as a Jedi, when he's committing to the training, all this, you know, he's like, I want to be like my father. He was cool, but he doesn't realize what happened to his father yet because that was not revealed. Now, at the end of Return of the Jedi, we know that he says, I want to be a Jedi like my father before me. So he's more clear. But at this time, he's learning self-discovery of his lineage, of himself, of his destiny, and he has to choose. And his actions and how he responds will also determine that destiny. And that too is relatable because in a human experience, when we're at that crossroad, we may not have all the choices, all the facts in front of us. And so that's where you have to sit down and discern what's going on. How can I make this better for myself? How can I pursue this? How can I manifest this? Or whatever, however you're going to use, whatever language you're going to use to go forward. And it may not be all what it seems, right? And going forward means, okay, so now I have to be careful and how I approach things, how I respond to things, how I react to things, because it could still be dire to me or people around me. And yet Obi-Wan still wants to train him, correct? It's funny that you say this, not funny, but when you analyze this, when he was taken on Anakin at first, he was like, I can't take this guy and train him when he's talking to his dying master. But then he commits to it because of his dying master. Now here, he's like, I will commit. I will fully, take on this task. So it's kind of like a full circle. He still trains and everything Anakin. He could have said, fuck this shit. I don't want to do none of this because look what happened with my first apprentice, and now we're in the state. So there's a lot of interesting, tidbits going on here, I guess you can say, when you can analyze the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Luke, it is your destiny.
Turns out Luke's destiny has a real, dark side to it.
Why didn't you tell me?
Lucas is telling a different sort of story from most of his contemporaries. Not every hero deals with questions of destiny or fate, but when they do, it usually means the hero has a feeling that they really ought to be someone more remarkable or more important or just cooler than they already are. And meeting that destiny either means becoming an awesome version of themselves or just becoming themselves. Here's a specific example. The new version of Captain Kirk starts off as a very similar character to Luke Skywalker. He's a hot rodder who grows up around a farm and never knew his father, but feels the pressure to become a great pilot like him anyway, and can't escape this nagging feeling that he belongs among the stars. Okay, geez, this is like the exact same. Anyway, the big difference between them is that his flaw is running away from his destiny.
Why are you talking to me, man?
His mentor figures basically spend the whole movie begging him to follow that feeling that he was destined for something great. And once he decides to go for it, things fall into place really quickly. It's a movie that looks quite a bit like Star Wars, but it's basically doing the opposite of everything that Star Wars is about. You know, if anybody asks. Star Wars belongs to an older tradition, one in which the words destiny and fate meant the same thing as the word doom. In those older stories, meeting your destiny might be inevitable, but it wasn't likely to be a pleasant experience. This isn't to say that those other movies are bad, it's just to point out that the older tradition understood heroism, but it also felt that ambition would often have unforeseen consequences.
Because I think the core issues that I'm dealing with are, if they were valid 2,000 years ago, they've got to still be valid today, even though they're not in fashion. And I think we've gone for a few generations where a lot of the sort of more basic stories have fallen by the wayside.
And now we're in the state of like, this is not cool. They have to subvert even these old mythologies and these old storytellings and stuff like that that can bring, life-changing stories and ideals and stuff like that. So interesting information from George Lucas there in the state we're in here today. Yeah. Let me go ahead and play this again.
Luke's doom is still undecided at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, which is why on the one hand he's looking and acting uncomfortably like Darth Vader, while at the same time he's back to the role of hero and even seems to have picked up some traits. He's willing to be paid and plan things, leaving Jabba to make all the impulsive mistakes. It's almost like Luke has gotten stronger in both of the conflicting halves of his meetings with Yoda affirm this, that he hasn't chosen a path until he's willing to face his doom head on.
Up front, Vader. Only then a Jedi will you be.
The heart of the conflict Lucas is building here is that either Luke has to kill his father or give up on his dream of becoming a Jedi. But Luke identifies too much with the man he now sees as Anakin Skywalker.
I can't kill my own father.
As the connection between them, even if Vader himself denies it.
That name no longer has any meaning for me.
By the way, all of this is happening in what is ostensibly a children's adventure movie. The increasingly internal nature of the conflict in the Star Wars saga is another thing that separates it from most of its other peers. It's also why it's fine that the battle above the second Death Star is so reminiscent of the battle above the first. It reminds us that the conflict facing Luke is no longer out there, but in here. The confrontation with the Emperor is where Lucas will resolve the question of whether Luke will be able to vanquish the supreme avatar of the dark side, while the alternative is literally staring him in the face. And of course, when George Lucas has a question like that, there's only one way it's going to be answered. The question of destiny hangs over every duel in the Star Wars saga. So, Return of the Jedi features the last Duel of the Fates. This final duel is about whether Luke can escape his father's destiny. And though Luke is always looking for the high ground, he can't ever stay above Vader for long. Because ultimately, he isn't. Whatever one of them is capable of, the other is as well. This is why it's misguided to think that the Star Wars movie's vision of good and evil is just black and white. Lucas isn't telling stories about good people and evil people. He's telling stories about characters who can choose good or evil. The light side and the dark side are the two paths these choices take them down. As long as Luke can't make this choice, he's left at the mercy of his emotions, which can take him to a pretty dark place.
Luke works intuitively through most of the movie until he gets to the very end. He goes back and forth with his emotions about fighting his father, not fighting his father.
Luke's hatred of the idea of following his father's destiny leads him to try to destroy that destiny completely. Which is exactly the idea.
Good, Anakin, good. Fulfill your destiny and take your father's place at my side.
In Star Wars, destiny is a trap. Destroying Vader and becoming Vader are the same thing.
Never.
If Luke wants to decide his own destiny, it means he has to embrace the good still left in his father.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
And then, finally, someone is willing to call him a Jedi Knight.
So be it, Jedi.
Ultimately, doesn't it take a leap of faith?
Yes. You notice Luke uses that quite a bit.
Luke doesn't find victory the way other heroes do either. At the end of each Star Wars movie, Luke has to surrender and allow someone else to save him. This time, there's only one person that could be. Because if he can become a Jedi like his father can become a Jedi like him. The ultimate irony of Luke being talked about as a generic hero is that at the end of the day, he's not the hero of the story at all. And so ends the story of Star Wars. Well, okay, obviously not exactly. But now the stories are told by someone other than George Lucas. What that ultimately means for Star Wars is probably best left for another. At the very least, it has to change it. Always because a way to tell all of us who he is.
I've discovered along the way that happiness, you live in two worlds here. Happiness is pleasure and happiness is joy. Pleasure is short-lived. It lasts an hour, lasts a minute, lasts a month, and it peaks and then goes down. It peaks very high. But the next time you want to get that same peak, you have to do it twice as much. It's like drugs. On the other hand is joy. Joy is a thing that doesn't go as high as pleasure, but it stays with you. Joy is something you can recall. The secret is that even though it's not as intense as the pleasure, the joy will last you a lot longer. People who get the pleasure, they keep saying, well, if I can just get richer and get more cars, you'll never relive the moment you got your first car. That's it. That's the highest peak. If you're trying to sustain that level of peak pleasure, you're doomed. Just accept the fact that it's here and it's gone. And maybe again, it'll come back. Pleasure is purely self-centered. It's all about your pleasure. It's a selfish, self-centered emotion that's created by a self-centered motive of greed. Joy is compassion. Joy is giving yourself to somebody else or something else. And it's a kind of thing that is, in its subtlety and lowness, much more powerful than pleasure. If you get hung up on pleasure, you're doomed. If you pursue joy, you will find everlasting happiness. So with that, I'm gone. Bye-bye. Thank you.
All right. So there you have it. So great analogy here by So Uncivilized. And I do plan on sharing more of his videos. And this is perfectly segue to go into the anti-trilogy that he created. And maybe that will be next. But one thing I wanted to share is the GOAT villain, basically. And that's Palpatine, that he did the analogy of that. So many great videos to watch of his. And I'm going to go ahead and share this here. Let me go ahead and find it, make sure that I'm closed out in all other things. And then there we go. Remove. Let me take this off here. So go ahead and share what you thought about this video. Anything, any insights you've seen, even a small, like even if there's disagreements on some things he said or whatever, it's perfectly fine to share. But let me know in the comments while I pull up this next clip here. Here we go. Let me see here. Nope, I don't want to log in. We're not going to start this just yet. How can I rewind it? Are you not going to let me rewind it from here? All right. So I try to stop it as soon as let me refresh this real quick. So go ahead and share in the comments while I get this thing established. There we go. All right. And close this window. I don't want too many tabs up. Whoops. Took myself out of that. All right. So, Heir to the Empire was the true successor to the original Star Wars trilogy. Pretty cool that you think that. Don't feel disagreement, or don't feel any disagreement. That was very insightful and inspiring. Okay, there you go. Okay. I just joined the stream, but from what I remember from the video, I don't disagree with anything. Luke is the kind of hero that we all need these days, correct? And it's very interesting how, you know, Rian Johnson has basically deconstructed him as a big ass loser, basically, to subvert expectations. So with that being said, we're going to get into the type of fan that agrees with this type of person, like Rian Johnson. So let me go ahead and it's not going to, there we go. All right. So let's get into this.
Is not Luke Skywalker. I don't know who this imposter is, but it's not Luke. And I'm not just talking about the weird CGI Uncanny Valley thing. I'm talking about how Luke Skywalker was never a badass.
Okay, so never a badass. That's the thing. I was like, I forgot the type of words he used. He was never a badass. We've seen him a badass within the whole trilogy, making important decisions and even overcoming some setbacks, some flaws, because that's what a badass does. A badass is not a person who just goes through things without any struggle, right? They overcome flaws, they overcome setbacks, they move forward, they find better solutions, and this is exactly how we see Luke Skywalker's development. So let's see what this asshat has to say.
Throughout the entire original trilogy, Luke was not a badass. In fact, his story is the antithesis of a power fantasy. It's a deconstruction of a power fantasy.
So do you think George Lucas was doing a deconstruction of a power fantasy? Because that absolutely was something never stated by George Lucas himself, nor was a part of the themes or focus of Luke Skywalker as the deconstruction of a badass, basically. What do you guys think? Let me see what you're saying in the chat. All right, I'm going to come back to that. Let's just get through this real quick. All right.
In many ways, this scene is sort of the culmination of a weird Mandela effect phenomenon wherein a whole bunch of Star Wars fans, including the creators of this show, have this false memory of Luke Skywalker being this badass Jedi warrior with almost godlike powers. But
okay, Star Wars are EU elitists. What do you think about that? We have like this Mandela effect, and we imagined in our head of Luke Skywalker being this badass that can do anything and this godlike persona. Has this guy never read the EU to know that even prior or post Return of the Jedi, like in Trusat Bakura, Shadows of Mindor, even into the Thrawn trilogy, he was not this godlike person. He had a lot of flaws. He was overcoming a lot of self-doubt as he decided to reform the Jedi Order, including in the Jedi Academy trilogy. So He's saying, oh, this is all in your minds because it's never happened before. All right, let's go on.
That never happened in the original trilogy. In the original trilogy, Luke's...
All right, so he's only referring to the original trilogy. However, I just shared with that this was basically Luke Skywalker's hero's journey, his growth, his decisions, him overcoming all these obstacles to get where he is at to become a Jedi. This is a growth and development story. And this guy fails to see this type of theme that George created. And yes, he was badass during this time. There was those badass moments of him overcoming shit, of him making decisions that worked, of him stepping into who he is and needs to be as a Jedi. That's fucking badass. Everything that he went through, like even the moments of him being saved by Leia and so on and so forth, is a part of a badass's journey, I guess you can say. I'm just going to use that word since he's used it and we're playing on that word now. Right? Like even Han Solo, you could say he's the biggest badass there is for the type of person he is and stuff like that. He has to be saved. He makes wrong decisions. He also corrects those wrong decisions just like Luke Skywalker. He also overcomes just like Luke Skywalker. And Leia, you could say she's the most badass out of all of them because she's like, hey, I am this leader and I am confident in myself, to where she has to soften down, right? So let's move on.
Skywalker is a bumbling failure for the most part. He's constantly getting knocked unconscious. He's constantly losing battles and he's getting captured all the time. The thing that people remember from Return of the Jedi is the scene where he enters Jabba's palace for the first time. And it seems like he's going to be a badass, but then he promptly fails. He fails to shoot Jabba the Hutt. He almost dies to the Rancor, and he ends up in chains.
So basically, he's talking about everything that happened without even pointing out the context behind that. Of him overcoming, of him rescuing himself and defeating the Rancor, of the initial plan that was set forth through Return of the Jedi to save Han. So he's playing to everything that had happened to him, but not the outcome. Not the context of this. I know you guys.
There's nothing badass about what happens here. And that's actually
him saving himself from the Rancor, solving that problem to rescue himself is fucking badass. Him being taken by the Wampa and rescuing himself and using the Force to grab the lightsaber, this problem solving is fucking badass. Because many people would be like, oh shit, I'm gone, and not do much for themselves. That's fucking badass. This guy does not know what the hell he's talking about.
actually really important. Luke Skywalker is captured 3 separate times just in Return of the Jedi. First by Jabba, then by the Ewoks, and finally turns himself into the Empire.
So he says he's captured 3 times and then he corrects himself at the end because he was not captured in the Return of the Jedi. Like he said, he turned himself in because there was a plan behind that. And so this guy right here, like, this is so fucking disingenuous. Holy shit, it's disingenuous. Okay.
I mean, he spends most of that movie in handcuffs. In fact, the only time...
No, he's not in handcuffs most of Return of the Jedi. He's in it for a time frame in the throne room, and then they're taken off right away. And this is where Palpatine and Vader start manipulating him to turn him and egg him on to take the saber, egg him on to fight so that he can, turn to the dark side. Did this guy even watch the fucking movie?
Time that he comes close to being maybe a badass is in that final fight with Darth Vader, but he is this close to turning into a Sith Lord. If he doesn't stop and throw away his weapon, he will turn to the dark side. The movie is not ambiguous about that point. It is very clear.
And what's so badass about this is that he realizes this and he refuses to carry on because he sees that destiny. If he continues to start defeat, like we watched So Uncivilized, and it's very apparent the destiny, dark versus light, right? So if he continued to fight, he would become what his father is, right? So the badass here is coming to that conclusion, throwing down that lightsaber, and then confronting Palpatine, making the statement, making the stance that he's a Jedi like his father before him. And another badass step through this is putting faith through love and compassion of a father-son relationship, that for Vader to step up out of that shell and Anakin to be revealed to save his son. That's badass.
So how did we get here? How did we get to a place where a critique of a power fantasy, a warning about how absolute power corrupts absolutely, gets retconned into a pure power fantasy? Well, part has to do with the extended universe, right? The sort of wish fulfillment fan fiction that we find in comic books and video games and novels. Stories that turn Luke into a just godlike badass, where he...
So he references a video game, where video games do have the exaggeration gameplay and stuff. And then he goes to Dark Empire, where he stops and force pushes or whatever, the AT, and stuff like that. However, he does not share context behind that, like games, for instance, exaggerated play for the sake of just having fun, right? And then Dark Empire, where his mission was to discover and learn more about the dark side so he can use that, not use it to be dark, but be more knowledgeable about, right? And also to defeat the Empire from the inside, to where that almost completely backfired on him and stuff like that. He does not share context of this whatsoever, nor does he share context of like how many times Luke fails, is flawed and stuff in his journey throughout the expanding universe, including New Jedi Order, where he starts questioning himself, where he doesn't want to fight back because he's in fear of all of his Jedi turning into Darth Vaders. So
sees an Imperial walker and then crushes it with his mind. Now, part of that is because a simple power fantasy sells a lot better. If you're going to sell action figures and
there's no power fantasy going on in whatsoever with the expanded universe. Again, he's leaving out context to these stories.
Cereal and Lego sets and video games, a simple power fantasy sells really well, especially to young men who want to...
Now, games for the power setting, yes, it's going to be amped because it's just for the sheer joy of play. That's why a lot of games are basically what they call S-canon, or how you play is not how the story really happens.
Sort of embody that feeling of power. One of the many things I appreciate about The Last Jedi is that it addresses this question directly. It addresses this false collective memory of what Luke Skywalker is.
Again, like I stated, Rian Johnson deconstructed what was created with Luke by George Lucas to subvert fans, right? Subvert the story. And this really hurt the character as what he was supposed to be, or he is not supposed to be, because he still is under George Lucas. Under Disney, not so much.
I think what? I'm gonna walk out with a laser sword and face down the whole First Order?
And then, of course...
And yes, he does, but he does it in such a cowardly way. He force projects and then dies from it.
He does exactly that, only it's not him. It's a projection of all the things people want him to be. It is a false image of himself, the badass Jedi warrior. And then that false memory serves as a distraction.
Hence, false image of himself. Because it's not him. This is not how he's supposed to be. Now, the Luke in the original EU, he's used force projection to help with Jaina Solo confronting her brother. He's force projected himself onto the Anakin Solo to confront his nephew in and stuff like that. Now, he does go there physically, but there's an instant where he force projects himself and what have you, but he does not die.
Action, so the resistance can escape.
What happened?
This is not Luke Skywalker.
Okay, that's the end of that. So there you go, you guys. So here we go. This is the state of Star Wars here, and this is exactly how they want fans to think of this hero that George Lucas created as a timeless hero that everybody can relate to. And that even post Return of the Jedi, he is still very much relatable. He's still this everyman's hero, I guess you can say. And now this is the state, again, this is the state of Star Wars. They deconstructed the myth to make it look like the myth of Luke, the hero's journey of Luke, the hero of Luke is wrong, is bad, that we shouldn't want to become that hero in our lives. So there you go. Thank you guys very much for watching this with me and deconstructing this as well with the premise of going back or watching So Uncivilized version and his analogy of Luke Skywalker under George Lucas. Yeah, with that though, you know, Luke Skywalker, the hero we aspire to be, unless you're into Disney Star Wars. That's it, you guys. That's all that is. That's all it is. Fun with a side of popcorn and no more mythos, the deconstruction of the hero that made the franchise. All right, you guys. So it's time to say our Toksha Ake. See you later. And thank you for hanging out. No cringe factor. I'll save that for next week. I actually did watch a cringe factor. So there you go. So with that being said, I didn't play the right thing for that. So let's go ahead and give our respects to the segment of cringe factor.
So uncivilized.
And fade out. And thank you guys for hanging out on Rumble, all my Rumbleites over there. And if you haven't made an account and followed, get over there. Get your butts over there. What are you waiting for? All right. And if you're catching the replay, thank you so much. Leave your comments down below. And I will see you guys next Thursday, same time, same day. Thursday, 9 a.m. unless specified, but that's the plan. And if you haven't had a chance to yet, if the poll is still open, go vote so we can set the time and dates. I expect to see you guys there. I'll link it to Rumble. So if you don't want to register and hang out in the private chat room, then we can, our private viewing room, I guess you can say. That sounds kind of weird. That sounds very weird. But anyways, you can go on Rumble and watch it there. And we'll see how long that lasts on Rumble. So hopefully it doesn't get taken down. But anyways, so go vote over there. We'll figure this one out. It will begin in June. It will begin in June. And Purist, if you have a someone to raid, feel free to do it right now. Send out the raids. And right here, Purist Archive stream tonight. Knights of Melvin stream tomorrow night. And thank you so much. Fun. So stay tuned for other Gatekeeper Alliance content. And speaking of that, Tim does have a new video out on, I forgot, the archives of the expanded lore or something like that. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but it's on Rumble. So check that out there. Soul Assassin, if you want to pull up that link and share, feel free to do that. And you guys have a good day, and may the force be with you. And I will talk to you guys later. Let me see here. Let's play this first.
Jedi is something that came a little later. When we started building Jedis, we had a lot of Jedis, and we needed more and more Jedis. As we were doing them toward the end, we ended up with a lot of Jedis that looked like people that worked at ILM, with these short little haircuts and looked like they stepped out from behind a computer. And so I was saying we have to get more exotic Jedis. And so we would we only have so much resources to do these things with. But I do have Twi'leks because we use them quite a bit in other areas in the Senate and as background action. So I have a sort of a wardrobe and a setup of certain kinds of characters. So it was a way of reinventing some of those characters. And I had realized that we had a comic book that has a Twi'lek in it that is a Jedi. There's a whole series actually of her. And I said, well, why don't we put her in this? I mean, she's a comic character, but we'll just fit her in and have her be a background character because that's exotic. And that's how the Twi'lek Jedi ended up in the backgrounds of these shots, was to try to use some of the work and effort that the guys in the comic book world had put into things and characters they had created.
Another happy landing.